Hello, and welcome to another special episode of A Mic on the Podium with me, Michael Seal. In part 2 of my chat with the 5 conducting students at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland in Glasgow, I subject them all to 10 questions. Not exactly the same 10 questions as everyone else, but still, 10 questions nonetheless. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Jacobus de Jager, Oliver Cope, Peggy Wu, Kentaro Machida, and Riley Court-Wood. Hello everybody, welcome to part 2 of my chat with the 5 conducting students at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. Just a reminder of who we're looking at from left to right. It's Jacobus, Ollie, Peggy, Kentaro and Riley. And they're going to be subjected to 10 questions. Not exactly the same 10 questions, but I am going to ask for all of them to give me all of their answers rather than nominate. So I'm going to start. I'm just going to go left to right each time. It's a lot quicker, a lot easier. And so, Jacobus, what sound or noise do you love and what sound or noise do you hate?
Okay, the sound that I love is actually when the sun rises in the wilderness. And when the sun rises in the wilderness and the birds start singing, that's just beautiful and you just feel at home. And then the noise that I hate, I have 2 actually. The one is the sound of any type of alarm that has to wake me up. And the other one, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but that blowing sound that a clarinetist makes on the side of the instrument.
Yeah,
to get the water out of the key. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Next, Ollie.
So sound I love would be the sound of the sea. I just always love that. I think one day I'll be happiest if I can live near the sea. I've never been able to do that, but that's something I'd really like to be able to do. Sound I hate, construction work probably. I guess it's a difficult one. There's not too much which will, or any of you speaking. No, probably something like construction work. It's always really annoying. Yeah.
Peggy.
He stole my favorite sound. I love the sound of waves, but I also love actually the sound of tropical rain, like big raindrops, like flack, 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 flack. I love that. It's like when when big droplets, like when they hit when they hit leaves, when they hit so you get that kind of sound.
Okay.
Yeah, and then sound that I hate the most is when I'm on the tube and it screeches. Oh, I hate that so much.
Certain stations are worse than others, aren't they?
Yeah.
Marylebone is a terrible station for that. It's the one I use quite regularly coming from Birmingham. So yeah, it's terrible. Kentaro.
Yeah, I'm going to be really unoriginal, but actually I love and hate the sound of water and like waves and stuff. I love it obviously because it's sort of beautiful. I hate it because it I hate it because it makes me want to go for a wee.
Maybe you ought to get that checked. You're not my age yet. Riley.
I love the sound of eggs frying in a pan. And I hate the sound when somebody says something moderately funny and there's like a group and then that last noise of laughter, like
like I did about 2 minutes.
I hate that.
Social anxiety.
Well, I mean, I know the sound you're talking about, but what's possibly worse is if somebody says something moderately funny in quotation marks and there's no laughter at all. That's possibly worse. Yeah. Every time I tell any of my amusing stories from my career, I just hope I get at least one titter of laughter from somebody. I try not to tell them to orchestras at all, because otherwise, you end up with the sound of tumbleweed rolling across the stage. So I don't bother. Let's go on to question number 3, which is specific for you guys. What hobby or pastime do you like to spend your free time on away from your studies as a conductor? Jacobus.
I mean, I haven't done it in a while, but I love painting, and sketching. And then, I mean, when I'm in South Africa, I love bird watching.
Well, and a very interesting place to go and do it, I would imagine.
Yes, we have beautiful birds.
It's typically whenever you're Cobra. Yeah, exactly. Ollie,
Moving on from that.
moving on.
I like cooking. I really, really like, and cooking for, not for myself actually. That I find
Unfortunately.
cooking for other people. I have cooked for all of you.
Good roast.
Really
good roast.
Is probably one of my favorite things to do. If I have a lot of time to be able to, do a full meal for people I like or can, tolerate. Something I'd like to do.
So, what's interesting so far is that maybe the others will be the same, maybe they won't. But both Jacobus is either bird watching or sketching and drawing and painting, and also cooking are activities that can clean the brain of what we do as musicians, but also you can still do whilst thinking about phrasing or whatever else. I would say my answer would have been something like this, playing cricket. There's always music going through my head when I'm stood at fine leg waiting for the ball to fly in my general direction, or even when I'm running into bowl, there's always a tune in my head, but it's actually clearing it in another way because I'm thinking about the game, only about the game. Peggy, let's see if your answer is along those lines.
Yeah, I'd say they're along those lines. I'm thinking of tube activities. I love rock climbing. Because like I go with friends, very social. It's also like, I get in my body and it's great. And then I also love pottery. Yeah, it really calms me down. Like when I'm at the wheel, it's just the world goes quiet and it's great.
Yeah. You love clay.
Again, two very concentrated. Yeah, absolutely. Kentaro.
I just love being outside, so I like running quite a lot. Just going on walks, with my family, with other people, and by myself if I can find other people to go with me. But going on walks, and then also, I also love traveling and discovering new places. Going again with my family, with my extended family in Japan, and and my girlfriend as well. We're just, traveling and discovering new places with people who have sort of things to offer in their own way. I think that's really, I love doing that.
Well, you're going into the right profession for A, traveling, and B, having a lot of time off on your own to go for a long walk. Something I do on most trips on my, when I go away on my own. At least once, I'll go on a long discovery walk around a city if I don't know it. So, yeah, you're in the right job. Finally, Riley.
I haven't played for a while, but I love tennis. And I'm horribly competitive at it, even though I'm awful at it, which is a terrible position to be in.
Sounds like conducting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, and hiking and reading and occasionally seeing you people, but occasionally.
Occasionally. The next two are questions the next three are questions that come from the podcast. Can you name your favorite conductor of yesteryear? Jacobus.
Yesteryear. Okay, I mean, Carlos Kleiber, definitely. Maris Janssons, Mravinsky, and George Zell, I would say.
All good choices. I maybe should have banned Carlos Kleiber.
Everyone says that.
Well, I maybe should have banned him for the podcast from episode 1, but I didn't. Ollie.
It's such a hard question. Yeah, we won't say Carlos Kleiber. We were talking about him earlier, obviously. I think Bernstein for certain reasons, just because of the pure emotion and I think music really did just bleed out of that man. And then thinking very differently, Harnoncourt, just because of the recordings are always brilliant, almost without exception.
Two techniques you wouldn't teach, though, but
No.
two incredible musicians who music just poured out of. And that's the point about what we do, isn't it? You would never encourage anybody to conduct like either of those two greats of the past, but still they are greats of the past. Peggy?
I love Abado, but I think that's everyone knows, but
Have you told him?
yeah. The other one I was thinking of that like I really admire, but I will never attempt to try anything that he's tried is Charlie Badake. I have a lot of admiration for what he can pull off, but it's not something that I would like ever. Yeah.
Yeah, other than screaming Viola, we've all seen that. We've all seen that clip. Yeah. Yeah, he's a name that hasn't cropped up very often on the main podcast. All of the others you've given so far, various people have picked one or two, but Charlie Badaki's not appeared very often at all. So he's obviously somebody who divides the room.
Probably because they knew him, the other people.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not sure he was a particularly, what's the word, warm and giving character. But yeah, I don't know. He's just not appeared very often. Kentaro.
Well, this is the problem with having three people speak before me. Of
course.
But yeah, I mean, Ravinsky, I love. Abano, I love purely because the sound he gets out of the orchestra. I mean, it's. I look at his gestures and go, how? But it just happens. And Bernstein certainly, and then again in terms of sound, he gets out Karajan as well. Yeah.
Again, pretty standard names that we all come to listen to or admire, not necessarily technically, but definitely sound-wise there as well. And Riley, any names to add to that, being the last one on the list? Maybe I'll flip it in a minute and we'll go the other way. For the last 5 questions, I'll flip it. Yes.
Stealing all my. Okay, I've got 2 others to add, which would be John Barbaroli, who I adore, and Raphael Kubelik.
Yeah.
Good names, yeah, excellent. And Kubelik is not a name that comes up often. I know that 2 of you are Patreon members, so you can probably play it to the other 3 who aren't. But if you listen to the interview with Fergus McWilliam, the horn player from the Berlin Philharmonic, he lists Kubelik and talks about him in very glowing terms. So yeah, listen to that episode. Very fascinating stories about Kubelik. You've just inspired me to do this. Now from right to left. So Riley, favorite current conductor or conductors?
This is embarrassing because I've forgotten his last name, or I can't pronounce it, but it's Maxime at Scottish Chamber Orchestra.
Emilian.
I think he does some really cool things. I saw his heroic. I saw an eroica of his at the end of last year, and it was really extraordinary. It was great.
Yeah, he's the guy who did Mozart 39, 40, and 41 at the Proms. Yeah, very interesting conductor. Maybe somebody else will try and interview. What's his English like?
I thought it's good.
Fine, or maybe I'll try and interview him for Mike on the Podium. But very good choice. Not one I've had. Not a choice I've had before, I'm sure. Kentaro.
Riccardo Muti, I love. One of the best performances I've ever heard. Was the Vienna bill with Riccardo Muti at the Salzburg Festival with track 6, and that was one of the best performances ever. Tugan Sokiev, I've come to love recently.
Because of me.
Because of embarrassingly because of your covers. And then Semyon Bishkov.
Yeah.
3 very good names. A couple of those have appeared before. Sokiev, I know somebody's picked on the podcast. But yeah, very good choices. Peggy.
Recently I'm loving Vasily Petrenko. Yeah, I think like there's something like he has such a grand view of things that I love seeing.
Yeah, of course I've interviewed him. And I think he's appeared as a choice. Currently on tour with the RPO in America, I think, as we speak to each other. So yeah, he's busy over there. And I know he met Chris Russell, one of the Patreon subscribers, after one of the concerts, or before one of the concerts. So yeah, good choice. Ollie.
I think I've got two. One which is controversial. The one which isn't is Kirill Petrenko.
Yes.
Who I just think in so many ways is such a sort of perfect embodiment of what a conductor should be. I think his humility is amazing given the position he has. And the results are always very, very good as well.
Agreed. And a popular choice. What was your other one that's controversial?
Well, it would have been easier to say 10 years ago, but Valery Gergiev is someone who I will always watch if I'm learning a new piece. I just think as a musician, as a conductor, he does things so differently to so many other people. And that is very interesting to look at and think about. Obvious reasons why it's controversial.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I will often listen to what he's done with a piece of music. I will rarely watch it. Because I do not, I'm a professional conductor of nearly 890 concerts or recording sessions. I have no idea what he's doing or why he's doing it, frankly. And people have asked me and I still can't give the answer. So and it must have a lot to do with sound and attack of sound, and passing over responsibility to the orchestra for how these sounds start. But yeah, I will listen to it, but I won't watch it.
I think part of it is obviously we talked a lot before about Musin and how much time we spend thinking about that. So trying to work out how that and that school of thought translates to his gesture, which I think sort of comes slightly closer to understanding. But like you, I'll see a lot and have absolutely no idea how anyone played together.
I played for him when he conducted like that, and I spent most of my eyes either shut or looking at people around me, or listening hard across the orchestra. So yeah, it was tough. Jacobus.
I mean, just for the record, I'll say Martin Brabant. Hey. But I would definitely say one of my favorites, the boss himself, Neme Järvi. I love his conducting, and then of course Paavo, and then I'm a massive Tugan Sokiev fan. I also like Semyon Beshkov, and yes, if I were to say Mike Seal, would you make me your?
No, very good. I played for Paavo Järvi. I never played for Bechkov. One of my sort of small regrets was that he never came back to the orchestra, because he used to be principal guest before Paavo was Nemi, and he never came back when I was playing in the orchestra. And I'd love to have played for him. And the stories I heard about him and some of the things he did in concert from the older members of the orchestra when I joined, I think they held him in great regard and really enjoyed their time being conducted by him. So it's it's a bit of a shame that he never came back whilst I was there for 22 years. We never saw him again. We saw Paavo, obviously, but never yet Nemi. Brilliant choices. Brilliant choices. Maybe not the last one, but definitely the other ones. And I was waiting for somebody to say Martin Brabins. Number 6 is also from the podcast, and I normally I can say you can have more than one, but I'm limiting it to one each. And again, I'm going to start with Riley. What's the hardest work you've ever conducted?
This was tricky because I mean I've conducted a few things that I guess you could say are technically difficult, but I actually decided the Brahms 2 is very hard, at least for me. I mean, at my stage, like that first movement, musically, technically, in a way, it feels awkward. It's hard music to do justice to.
I'm nodding vigorously, just in case I do put this out as a podcast, because I've said it before. It was one of the first pieces I ever chose to conduct right at the beginning of my career with the Symphony of Birmingham, who are an amateur orchestra. I came away from that experience deciding not to conduct it for a very, very long time. I also conducted the Eroica around this point and came away from the badly, and came away from that experience thinking I must do that again right now and learn to do it better. But with Brahms 2, I thought, no, I'm not experienced enough, old enough, good enough. And I also had to, I think there's also in brackets, I also had to unsee the Carlos Kleiber performance with the Vienna Phil, because I think along with pieces like Brahms 4, Beethoven 4, 7, I think they sort of wrap you in this, I don't know, it's like a virus. You end up sometimes consciously trying not to conduct like that, to do anything different, because otherwise people are going to go, Kleiber. And I think that was also, for me, a contributory factor. When I came back to it, and I came back to it just before COVID so it was getting on for 15, 16 years. I was better, I was older, I was wiser. It's a good choice. It's a bloody hard symphony. It's my favorite Brahms, and I just had to
My
park
favorite
it.
too.
I just had to park it. Yeah. Kentaro.
I'm going to say Schubert 9, the Great Symphony. I did that a year and a half ago or something. Terrible choice. I don't know why I chose it. No, it's a great piece. It's just so hard to conduct, and the sheer length of it, and what you do with it, and how not to die in this, in the middle, and it's a great piece, as I keep saying. But it's just, it's long and it's tiresome for everyone involved.
Architecture. It's all about architecture and pacing, and I mean, I have to say there's at least 2 repeats I don't do to make everybody's 3 repeats I don't do to make everybody's life a lot easier in the orchestra. There's a reason why the nickname is the Great Sea Monster, because it is a monster. It's a monster of a piece, and you've got to go into it with your eyes wide open about the shaping and the architecture of it, and it's one you can easily crash and burn. So another great choice. Peggy.
Oh, well, the piece I have a bit of trauma with, to be honest, is Mozart Jupiter, actually. Because it's like, to me, I find Mozart really hard. It's like it's so gestural, but like for that specifically, it's sort of like it's gestural, but it's still quite like everything's like locked in and intellect. It's like I don't know, that piece I don't know what to do with, and I think it'll take me a long time before I know what to do with it. So I find that really hard, honestly.
I found the last movement extremely difficult, especially when there are sort of 8 fugues going on all at once. Who to bring out, who should I? And in the end, I just thought, no, just beat time and let the music speak for itself, because you can't micromanage something that's already so incredibly micromanaged. But it's another great choice. In fact, I had a student of mine speak to me about it the other day. What do I do at the beginning of this? Just simple phrasing. And there are so many options, so many ways you can do it. But really good choice. Mozart's hard. It's just hard. Ollie.
Yeah, mine's a little bit of a niche one, partly just because of a traumatic experience. But I did Brahms Triumphlied and Schicksalslied back at Cambridge with the choir of Clare and the orchestra there. And I hadn't really looked at it properly or / at all.
It's confession time.
Went into a rehearsal with the choir on Triumphlied, which you probably, I don't know if you know it, but it's hectic and there's so many entries, it's so hard. And it just wasn't happening. It was completely shambolic. And so the director of music sort of tapped me on the shoulder at the end and said, we're not doing that. We're going to have to cut that. And then Schicksalslied, we sort of fine for the choir. But when we came to the concert, it's this bit in kind of 3, fast 3, 4, so all in one.
The middle section.
One was tricky for me back then, still has its challenges, and it's just the cello going for a while, and basically someone, me, them, both of us, got lost, and it almost stopped and just couldn't get started again, and then some brave person decided to just play, and it managed to recoup form. But so both of those pieces, it was just a completely disastrous experience, and it was one of those ones which taught me, you've got to know, because it's hard, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I hadn't really paid attention to it. So that was a bit of a wake-up call.
Well, pieces, things like that are going to scar you, and what seems easy on paper sometimes just isn't, unless you've done a boatload of homework. And conducting in one is very tricky. I had a very interesting encounter with, I can't remember what he's past episode 100 at Sir Al Miller, who took over from Jorma Panela at the Sibelius Academy. He came and watched a rehearsal I was doing, and afterwards came and gave me a very quick lesson on how to conduct in one better. Considering I only conducted 7 bars in one in the entire concert, he focused on those 7 bars in the rehearsal. But actually, what he told me was brilliant. And I realized quite quickly that I was conducting it badly, or in that particular place I was conducting badly. It's because one in a bar, when there are 3 beats within that one, there's an extra beat floating around that you're not in control of. Unlike duple time, it's like anything in compound time, slow compound time. It's tricky. And finally, Jacobus.
This one is for the agents. I don't struggle with anything. But okay, on a serious note, I'll agree with Peggy. Any Mozart for me, nothing specific there. And then I'd say Sibelius Violin Concerto. It's a language that I'm still getting used to and trying to understand more.
And there are simple questions in the first movement of the Sibelius. Should I be in 1, 2, or 3?
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was lucky enough before I ever conducted that to watch Sakari Orimo conduct it, and then he gave me a lesson on it and told me how to conduct it, and what they do in Finland. And thank God he did, because that's tough. It's a tough piece. It's like trying to catch water. A lot of that first movement. It's just really difficult. If you are a student conductor, an amateur conductor, or even a professional conductor just starting out on a fledgling career, my Patreon page is a good place to visit and subscribe to. I've written many articles about specific topics relating to conducting, including a whole series entitled What Would You Do in This Situation?, where I discuss real-life encounters with aggressive orchestral players, or how to deal with a soloist having a memory slip in concert. There are lots of interviews with managers, soloists, orchestral players, and others about their dealings with conductors, along with lots of other conducting-related content. All of this can be found at patreon.com/a mic on the podium, and from as little as £5 a month, you can join this ever-growing resource and ask me any question at any time. Now, back to the 10 questions with the students from the RCS. Number 7 is, what piece can you not wait to conduct and so far never have? So, Riley.
Oh, I think I might have to. I really want to do Jupiter Symphony. And I really want to do Sibelius 7.
Oh. Well, I can tell you there's one of those is a lot harder to conduct than the other, technically, put it that way. Sibelius 7 is the epitome of where should I be in 100 bars time, and where am I on this journey in relationship to where I've got to be in 100 bars time? Am I too far ahead of myself? Am I behind myself? Are the orchestra following me? And as we are thinking about that 100's now gone down to 85, and it's so hard. But yeah, I've done it once or twice, and I'd love to do it again. Good choices, really good choices. But yeah, the technical challenge to Sibelius 7 is tough, really tough.
I just remember it really made an impact on me when I got this record when I must have been about 12, and I heard it and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. I think it was an old Paavo Berglund.
Yes. Yeah, with the Bournemouth maybe.
That's right.
That set, really good set. Pete Hill, who's also one of the interviews on Patreon, the ex-timpanist of the CBSO and the Bournemouth, remembers playing for Paavo with great... he just loved it. He thought he was wonderful to play for, especially on those Sibelius records. So yeah, really good choice, but yeah, it's a tough piece. Kentaro.
Yeah, mine changes very often, but currently I think I have 2. Bruckner 4 I'd like to do. And Chaik 6, which I've been wanting to do for like my whole life.
Bruckner 4 has one of my most favorite key changes in the entire world in it. And it's at the very end of the symphony. And to me, I think it's sacrilegious if you don't bring out. So at the very end of the symphony, the run to the last view of the mountain, or the run to the end, the seconds and violas go da dee da dee da dee da throughout all of that. And it's as if he tries to pick every single key that fits with it, and then some that don't, until the water is so pressing against the dam that he has to change key. And when he does, he goes to a key that nobody expects him to go to. He just goes, oh, it's incredible. I have conducted it once, and I'm desperate to do it again. And Chuck Sixton's, a good choice. Tough. I would say it's tougher than you think it is. Especially the middle two movements. Actually, you'd think the march is really easy. It isn't. You get the tempo wrong in that, it's a bugger to change. So yeah, good choice. Peggy.
Oh, I have a long list. How many can I? 1, 2?
You can have two. They've both had 2 so far.
2?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's hard. I would say La Mer. I would love to do. La Mer, I would really love to do. I've not had a chance to do it yet. And then I would say that I'd love to do a butterfly. I would love to do a show of butterfly. Yeah. I think I can die happy if I manage to do that. Yeah. Good
choices. I've only done one of those. I've done La Mer in 2 very different situations. One was taking over from Andrews Nelson's with the CBSO that I was playing in until I took over on tour. So with an orchestra that knew it backwards, and thankfully followed me, and it all went very well. And I've also done it at conservatoire level and tried to teach it from scratch. And it's one of the hardest things to teach any orchestra at conservatoire level, because very few people have anything meaty to play. There's an awful lot of colour and an awful lot of, what seemingly is nothing music, but actually you've got to treat it with real care. And yeah, it's a tough one to pace. So yeah, good. Butterfly, I know nothing about other than to listen to, so I can't comment on that. But doing an opera, yes, do one as soon as you can. Ollie.
Yeah, similar. I mean, one opera, one not. I'd love to do a Tristan. Just think to be a part of that and to go through that sort of almost spiritual experience would be brilliant. And then kind of similarly, just because, anything with small forces I really wanted to conduct, we could probably get a group together. So Scriabin, Poem of Ecstasy. I love it, and I've always loved Scriabin. It's been one of my favorite composers for a very long time. So I think, that would just be awesome.
I have conducted it. It's one of the hardest things to balance in the entire world. The string writing is incredibly difficult. It was at the Conservatoire in Birmingham. It also appears on another. I'm plugging Patreon. Definitely appears as one of the questions I ask some of the people on Patreon is, what 3 pieces would you take to a desert island, and which 3 pieces would you happily never hear again? And Stephen Maddock, the ex-chief executive of the CBSO, now the principal of the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire, chose the Scriabin as a piece he'd happily never hear again. And he did say to me, and had I spotted that he'd never programmed it ever in any of the concerts of the CBSO. So, it's a beast of a piece. Yeah, it really is. And I assisted Tristan for Andrews Nelson's, and yes, it's a spiritual experience, very much. Jacobus.
I'd love to conduct one of my favorite pieces, actually, Rachmaninoff Symphony No. 2. And then I'd probably say one that I also really like is Stravinsky's Symphony of Psalms.
So I was due to do the Symphony of Psalms, and then COVID came. I can't even remember who it was with. But as for Rack 2, Jacobus, once you've done it, it goes in a list of pieces that if the phone rang tomorrow and said, do you want to come and conduct Rack 2? The answer is yeah, anytime you like. Oh my God, it's amazing. And actually it's in a very small list of pieces. If somebody said, do you want to come back and play for a concert? I'd probably go back and play, even though I know my back and my fingers and my arms wouldn't cope with anything longer than 5 minutes of violin playing. But I'd go and play Rack 2. Oh my God, what an incredible play.
Yeah.
Really good choices. I'm going to go back to starting from Jacobus. With number 8, what is the one thing you would change about being a conductor? And you can add in being a conducting student if you like.
Well, I'd probably approach it from being a conducting student. The price the price of scores.
Oh, yeah.
Scores are so expensive, especially the nice ones. And then probably all the competition. It is a competitive field, and I would like to change that. That's why it's so great to have a class like this, because I mean, wherever you go with competitions, it's always competitive. Or master classes, it's maybe a bit like this, a bit tense, but it's nice to have conductor friends as well, because it's, as probably everyone on your podcast has said, it's a lonely profession.
Too true. They have all said that. I've also said on the podcast, it's wonderful having spoken to 140 odd conductors that now some of them I can consider friends, because we carried on chatting after I stopped recording. Scores, completely agree with you. I mean, it's terribly, terribly expensive thing. And if you are like me, as you can see behind me, I try and buy all of the ones I use because I like to keep my markings in them. But yeah, it's tough. But yeah, very good answer. Ollie.
I'd definitely echo scores. And then I suppose just the lack of sort of formal infrastructure about going into a career. It seems a lot of people talk about the presence of luck, and also just this kind of vague grey area of networking, and see what happens, and this was my break, and it's, I suppose, in an ideal utopian world, it would be a bit more formalized around you do the work. You can be assessed by I mean, my girlfriend's a doctor, and there's a very national sense of, everyone goes into the same system. You're all adjudicated by the same metrics, not by your teacher, So in an ideal world, but we play the cards we're dealt, don't we?
Yeah, and it is tough. I find it very easy speaking to you guys, but networking is not something I'm particularly good at, and I hate. One of my dear friends who subscribes on here, Pablo Urbina, calls the conducting fly. The people, every time you go backstage somewhere, because there's a friend of yours backstage, so I will go. I will not always go. There's always this one person who's always hanging around, buzzing around. And you think, why are you here? You're just networking. You're getting your face in front of other people all the time. And yeah, I find that whole element of what we do very, very difficult indeed. Very difficult. It's tricky, really tricky. Peggy.
I think I would say, I mean, obviously it's a fantasy, and it's like, I understand the necessity of it, but like, I would, like, what I would say is like, applications where we have to submit videos, like where I feel like videos sometimes kind of, it shows like such a snapshot of who we are as a conductor. It like flattens us out onto a 2D plane. And also, like, there are time limits to how much of the video we can submit. Like, I mean, of course, there's so many of us, and like there needs to be that like preliminary selection process. So I don't even know how to propose an alternative to this. But like, wouldn't it be wonderful if someone can just come and like watch a rehearsal we do, or like, spend a week with us to like, and then be a judge of what we can do. Like, yeah, I just think the video part being step one is, drives me crazy.
Well, everybody I speak to in your position, and people I've taught and still teach, the amount of times they send me a show reel and say, how does this look? Do I come across well in this? And I have to say to them, on regular basis, I think you come over great, but I'm not the one looking at it. I'm not on the competition jury. I actually think you conducted that really well. You fixed a problem in the orchestra. You conducted well. It wasn't just a dance routine with lots of funny faces. But I do wonder, these people look at these things and wonder what they're looking at, how qualified they are to know what they're looking at. But if they'd gone to watch you rehearse or spent, 2 days in your company, they'd discover what you were really about. of course, it's fantasy. I don't think it could ever happen. But I do find the video thing so frustrating. Because, you know, I can offer my advice to people and say, yeah, I think that looks great. Or I think maybe you should put them in this order. Or have you got any others? And they discarded one that I thought was really good. You know, but in the end, it's all subjective because it's put in front of somebody else who goes, nah, I don't like that. You know, yeah, it's difficult. I mean, there are certain things you should always do. When I was on the panel for one of the assistant conductor jobs at the CBSO, anybody whose video was from the conductors from behind them, I immediately put on the reject pile. Anybody that they would just have dot away and the camera was from behind the choir, rejected. You know, give me at least from the waist up, preferably whole body up, and a nice close image. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's really tough. Kentaro.
I'm going to go for two very practical things. First one being not only the price of scores, but the weight of them. Just lugging things around in a backpack is not for me. And then the other thing, which is sort of similar, I love going to new places, and obviously, you know, as a conductor, that's great. But the travel between, so going on trains, going on planes. I just hate it being crammed into a seat and sort of, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, you might be listening to the piece that you're studying for or whatever it is. And it's just, no, it's not for me.
Well, travel has appeared as the answer of this more than any other, I think. What's interesting is that the next episode I put out on A Mic on the Podium is a youngish Bulgarian-born conductor called Boyan Vidinov, who conducts orchestra founded in Mannheim. He's also the co-founder of a company to do with digitalizing music. And he has gone fully digital and uses an iPad. And we had a discussion about that on the podcast. I'm not sure I could ever do it. I mean, he's talking about trying to get some sort of technology where the iPad's twice the size and now has 2 pages to look at. Because I said to him, I like conducting on the left-hand page and seeing things on the right-hand page. I don't want to be flicking the page over twice as often, which is what you have to do on an iPad. But of course, that means the weight of scores. I recently took the risk. I flew to Cologne to go and do some recordings. And when I got back, I had to get in my car and drive to Salford and then do lots of other recordings with the BBC Philharmonic. And the Salford pile was masses of scores. And I thought, well, I could take them all the way to Cologne with me to make sure that I don't lose them. But I didn't. I packed them and hid them in the car and hoped that nobody stole my car, because otherwise I'd have been in big trouble. Fortunately, they didn't, and the scores were all right. But the weight, yeah, you're right. If you go on a long trip, it's a pain in the ass. Riley.
Again, it's I'm sat in the worst place because they've just stolen all my ones. So I'm just thinking, the price of competitions.
Yeah.
And also there are now so many. And I wonder how many of them are even really legit. To be honest.
Well, no, we may have mentioned this, and I'm not going to mention the competition, but we may have discussed this at length when I was in Glasgow. But there was a competition, in the pub, over many beers, and I'm not afraid to say that, and I don't care, because we all got on and we all had a great time, and we all, looked after each other. But there was a competition recently, that's as much as I'll say, where one of my other students asked me whether it was a good idea to apply. And I found out who was running it, and immediately flags were raised in my mind. And then I did some quick mental maths on how much people were paying to enter it and how much money these things were costing. And I worked out the guy was probably going to walk out with about 20,000 euros in his back pocket. Since then, and since they didn't give a first prize, he's probably walked out with even more. And yeah, you're dead right. The legitimacy of some of these competitions and the amount of money you're paying for them is not good. Not good at all. We must move on because you've probably got other things to do today. Number 9, so we're near the end. What is the one piece of advice you've been given so far that's proved most valuable? And it doesn't have to have come from a conducting teacher. It could have come from your scoutmaster or your swimming teacher. Let's go with, let's give Riley another go. And then the last question I'll finish with Riley. So Riley, answer this one first.
I think, there were 2 bits of advice. one was from, actually both were from Colin, which was very good, is that do all your preparation and think technically and work on yourself, but then when you're actually in the concert, just let go and just trust.
Yeah,
and then
brilliant advice.
And then the other bit of advice, which actually I saw Bernstein in a video, he gave a very similar thing, was that it's relatively easy to kind of go around and do gigs and do music, but the last 5% required to actually make something special is like the difference between night and day. And you got to be very sure if you want to put in the dedication and commitment to go for that 5%. I thought that was good advice.
I think that is a good advice, and especially the Collins one about letting go in concerts. Absolutely agree. That's not the time to be thinking, you know, how are my circles looking?
Yeah.
Or, you know, should I be conducting with my palm up or my palm down? Any of that stuff. No, you just want to let go. Kentaro.
Mine's much less profound. Mine comes from the wall from in a gym.
Good.
And it said,
I've never been to a gym.
it said,
It shows.
it said, if you've I can't remember. No, it said if you want something you've never had, you need to do something that you've never done before. And what's weird is like I sort of looked at it and thought, obviously, this is for people that are sort of, you know, pumping iron. But I then thought actually you could really use this in an orchestral context. You know, if you want a sound that you've never got out of an orchestra before, you know, and someone tells you this is the way to do it, you know, you've got to try it, you've got to experiment with it, you've got to see what works. Obviously, we talked about, you know, music and technique earlier, but yeah, I thought that was actually quite applicable to, you know, other sort of facets of life.
I should be writing it down myself later on. I think it's a really, really good line. Really good line. Peggy.
So I have this on my quotes wall at home. And it comes from Maria Shaw Pirish when I studied with her. And she said, don't let your plan get in the way of life's plan.
Very good.
So it's something I always think about.
Mm.
So I would like to share that.
Well, it's a little bit like we were saying earlier on, the most unexpected turn of events can suddenly change your plan and for the better, for good. So absolutely true. Ollie.
Probably comes from my dad, who said that it doesn't matter what you do in life at all, as long as you are in some way helping other people. And I think particularly I think it's fair to say ego-dominated profession, that's something I try and remember.
And a very good thing to try and remember. I mean, that's why I'll never stop conducting youth orchestras or student orchestras, because I think we have to give back what we learn, what we know. And I think, you know, even it's something as simple as doing this podcast is to try and unpick the ego and try and say, you know, we are here for people's nourishment of the soul by conducting great orchestras to produce great concerts and great music. It helps people, you know, get through the daily grind, helps them take them to a place they want to go to, or even a place they never knew they were going to go to. And yeah, absolutely, a really, really good one, really good. Jacobus.
I don't remember whether someone actually told me this or whether this is my own advice. So, but this is definitely something that I think a lot of young conductors can take. Because we are young conductors, we tend to think everyone above us know more or know what's best. And basically the advice is be selective from who you take advice from. I think I've many a time really felt that I should not be continuing or I'm doing the wrong thing because someone told me that it's not right or it's and then you just start sacrificing yourself, your own personality. And I think that should never be the case with any musician, actually, because I mean, to make music, you need that, and to be original, you need that. So yeah, that's my piece of advice from someone.
It's a brilliant piece of advice. I was nodding away and going back to, you know, conducting one in a bar. If you're not going to listen to, you know, if I'm not ready to listen to Atza Al-Miller, who's taught generations of conductors how to conduct brilliantly, about how to conduct one in a bar, I'd be a fool. But then there have been other people I've spoken to who've given me advice. One in particular said to me, "You shouldn't be conducting youth orchestras and amateur orchestras. It makes you a worse conductor." And I thought, well, I don't understand that or why. That you're just looking at it from a marketing point of view because of the job that they were in. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The problem is, you won't know until much later when you've selected the right people to be selective about. But yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. We're going to finish, because you've probably got other things to do, with my favorite question of all, and I can't leave it out, and I know it's going to take time. I'm going to start with Jacobus and go from left to right. And if you want to be religious in like others have been, and say, you know, you'd rather fast before you meet your maker, that's fine. I won't ever speak to you again, but it's fine. But the question is, if the world were to end tonight, Jacobus and others, what would be your choice of final meal and drink?
Well, okay, I definitely not fast. I would fill my stomach, but I would probably want to be, if it was my last night, I would want to be in the wilderness. And I would want, as usual, and I would want to light a fire and have a nice braai.
Oh yeah.
South African braai with a lot of meat on the braai. And yeah, just a nice braai broodjie. That's bread that you put on the braai. Yeah, just a nice South African braai with biltong and dried fruit. And then for a drink, probably a good South African craft beer and some Amarula. Then I'll die.
Nice.
Well, I'd happily join you. That's right up my street. Absolutely, that's right up my street. Barbecue and beer. Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
no, not a barbecue. A braai.
Braai, sorry.
Totally different thing.
Ollie, where are we going with yours?
Oh, it's one of two. It's either a Chinese takeaway.
Brilliant choice, my favourite. Yeah,
Man.
or it's a Christmas roast dinner. Or either one with probably a cocktail to start, and then some nice red wine, probably from my good South African friend.
Yes.
Sprouts or no sprouts?
Oh, always sprouts, but absolutely mullered with bacon and chestnut and butter, so it doesn't taste like sprouts anymore.
Right, yeah, that's my argument against sprouts. If you need to put that much effort into eating them or into cooking them, they don't deserve to be eaten. Brilliant choices. I know, yeah, Chinese takeaway. If my missus says to me, "Oh, I can't be bothered to cook," let's have a takeaway. Chinese will be my number one option every single time. So there we go. Peggy, where are we going with you?
I would say I would love a Hainanese chicken rice, and anyone from Singapore would lynch me if I don't specify which. So I would say it's specifically the one at the Hawker Center next to Bukit Merah, for anyone who knows. That is the chicken rice, the chicken rice.
The best chicken rice, yeah.
Best chicken rice in the world. And then I would go for drink, a Vietnamese drip coffee with condensed milk.
Ooh. Now that is a first. I've not heard that. Chicken rice probably is also a first, but I've not heard of that. That sounds amazing. Sweet though, isn't it? Condensed milk.
Yeah. But it's like the flavor is so special, and it's like the coffee is like, oh man.
It's why I love this question. I rarely ever get the same answer from anybody ever. Brilliant. I'm going to investigate Vietnamese drip coffee. Kentaro, where are we going with you?
I'm going to go back to my hometown in Sapporo. It's just the sort of north in Hokkaido in the North Island of Japan, and it's famous for miso ramen. So that miso ramen is the sort of the home food. So a bowl of miso ramen, and it's also famous for Sapporo beer, which is the sort of best beer in Japan. So those two things, quite simple, but I'd die happy with that.
It's part of the problem with getting older. I'm not saying I am old, but getting older is I've been to Sapporo, but at the time I wasn't into ramens and things like that. I was definitely into Sapporo beer, and I drank a lot of it whilst I was there. But I wasn't into ramen, and I wished I was, because and now I love ramen, and I wish I could go back in time and have some Sapporo ramen in Sapporo. But yeah, brilliant choice. Just Sapporo beer still, when it first came out here, and I'm talking about around 1990, so way before you were born. The ring pull on the top used to basically open up the whole of the top of the can. It wasn't just a little hole. It used to pull the whole of the top of the can off.
Yeah, so if you go to the actual brewery, I think they still have those. But unfortunately, the ones you get in sort of convenience stores are the normal sort of cans and the
boring ones. Yeah. Probably health and safety. It's always health and safety is the reason. And finally, Riley, where are we going with you?
Mine's a location. It's not a meal. It's this little place in Barbados, and it's right on the sea. It's called Little Good Harbor, and I just ordered whatever they had, maybe some red snapper or something with a bit of rice, and then a large bottle of Barbadian rum, Bajan rum, black spiced.
And the best rum around.
I need some Dutch courage, I think, because it's the end of the world,
I'm not a name dropper, because I try desperately not to be. But the last time I had any high quality rum was sitting at a dinner table, which included the then at the time England cricket coach Andy Flower. He and I had become friends, and we were sitting there drinking with our wives and various other people around this table some very nice rum, and I can easily suggest to anybody that if you get a good high quality rum, it's just delicious, absolutely wonderful stuff. And in that situation, what else could you possibly drink? It's now approaching 10 to 1, or just past 10 to 1. I've been chatting to you for a good hour or so at least, and it's been just like catching up with you, as we were in the pub after every day's rehearsal. It's been brilliant chatting to you all. Thank you for coming on and being open and honest, and we've kept the swearing down to a minimum between us, which so it's sort of a bit like our meetings in the pub, but not actually anything like it at all. But I wish you all the very best. I know my subscribers will, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch, and I hope to see you all very, very soon. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. We fucking love you.
A Mic on the Podium was devised and produced by Michael Seal, with music by Ben Dawson. Next time, I chat with an American conductor who studied at Juilliard and Aspen, and was the first recipient of the Sir George Solti Emerging Conductor Award. He's held title positions in the US and Sweden, and is currently the music director of the Crash Ensemble in Ireland. But until then, bye-bye.